Bonjour, Burowskis. Ever wonder about what Alberta's getting up to these days? Well, I sure haven't. Until I remembered a picture that I saw online making the rounds a while ago. Some of y'all might have already seen this too, but it's places where rats exist, I guess? With maps like this, it could be pretty questionable on how true this info is. Maybe there's secretly rats hiding in the Arctic. Who knows? But after my deep dive here, I have full faith that Alberta is completely ratless. Not a snake in sight. But let's go to the basics here. What even is a rat? When people talk about rats, they're usually referring to the brown rat. And if you've seen my pigeon video, you already know how I feel about this monstrosity of a list of other common names. So, we'll keep it short. It's also called the Norwegian rat. Which is actually pretty funny because they're not even from Norway. Not even close. They come from China. Question mark? In the general vicinity, at least. It relies on humans, so safe to say if there's a human, there's a rat. By this logic, we can assume that everyone who lives in Alberta is not human. I thought I smelt something fishy about them. So let's break it down. How special or insane is Alberta? Rat-free areas of the world include Antarctica and the Arctic. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Some isolated islands. Unnamed? Okay, sure. Parts of New Zealand and Australia, yeah. And the entire Canadian province of Alberta. Guys, Alberta's huge. Not to mention it's the prairies, farming land, rat land. Quite literally in the middle of Canada. Surprisingly, rats didn't show up to North America until 1775, but didn't actually make their way to the prairies until the 1920s. I'll do the math for ya. That's over 100 years. The first report in Alberta was in the 1950s, slowly creeping to 200 years here. Discovered completely by accident, some poor government workers were just trying to investigate some squirrel disease making the rounds, but instead found the biggest scandal in Albertan history. I wouldn't want to be there for that conversation. I mean, how do you break it to the entire province that you found rats? Hey boss, feeling sick today, can't come in. Oh, okay, I hope you feel better. If you don't mind, could you just quickly send over the report on that squirrel disease you did yesterday? Oh, oh, rats. Rats? Yes, I quit. What? Alberta, never having dealt with this before, immediately was like, oh, the plague, we're all gonna die. But then the Department of Agriculture stepped in, taking on the task of saving humanity from little dudes. Aw, they're just little dudes. The province sorta had vague legislation in place already, but this was for pests as a whole. The Minister of Agriculture from 1942 onwards had a hit list of animals banned, but after their innocence was torn away from them in the 50s, Alberta decided that one man wasn't enough. After the rats were found, they required municipal pest control inspectors, tasked with being Alberta's first line of defense against these little dudes. Sounds like a fun job, but okay, this is obviously an important role. I like mocking Alberta, but they actually did stuff for this and can boast this weird but impressive achievement. That doesn't change the fact that municipal pest control inspector sounds like a job born in nepotism that gets you $200K yearly. How about let's play a game called How Qualified Are You to be the Major Defense of Alberta? Okay, job description number 1. Check every premise within the first 3 ranges west of the border. Playing hide and seek? Check. Number 2. Distribute bait and establish bait stations. Aw, we get to feed them. Check. Number 3. Encourage rat-proofing of buildings and the removal of rat harborage and food. Oh, well, okay, I guess. Check. Number 4. Destroy any rat infestations that were found. Guys, I don't think I'm cut out for this. Take me back. And oh my gosh, they literally have a rat border system. They have a rat Maginot line. It's called the RCZ, and it's really giving Cold War vibes out here. It's not an actual wall, but more like a rat death strip, minus the Soviets and the Germans. Alberta is fighting for its life out on its eastern border. And all this makes me question the western border. It's only Alberta that's rat-free, so what's happening over in British Columbia? The RCZ is only on its east, and there's zero mention of BC. Probably something to do with the mountains, I don't know, that's my best guess. We'll leave it as that for now. Their official government website also takes this super seriously. And oh my gosh, I really hope this reaches people in NYC, because the official Alberta website has a report a rat button. Oh my gosh, please someone from New York City, give me your thoughts. Screw what I have to give, you're the one that matters. I love that Albertans also just don't really know rats too well because they just never see them, but they're traumatized from their training. So the government gets a bunch of calls for non-rats, but have to investigate every single call. Most of the time, the rat is a squirrel or a muskrat or really any other small animal. When the rats first appeared, they had to make rat experts because most people, again, just didn't know anything about rats. And to be fair, this was the 1950s, but I don't know. I know there was no internet and it could be compared to me trying to identify anything from Australia. I couldn't do that. But a rat? So yeah, actually dealing with the rats was an issue because again, no one knew rats. The government had to hire rat bounty hunters because they just weren't equipped to do it themselves. And boy, you know what Alberta's main solution to rats was? Early forms of rat poison. Okay, but this included over 63,000 kilograms of arsenic trioxide tracking powder. Which, fun fact, arsenic trioxide is apparently used to help fight cancer. But this is because, as chemotherapy goes, it kills you enough to kill the bad cells, but not you fully as a whole. Just nuking your cells and immune system. Do you think these people who had just got introduced to rats handled it as graceful as doctors? Was this a controlled environment with every precaution taken to ensure the safety of citizens? They went absolutely wild with it, throwing it practically everywhere they thought a rat could live. But what was that thing I mentioned about the Norwegian rat? Oh right, it can only live where humans live. They didn't initially tell people that the main ingredient was arsenic. And I didn't pay too much attention in science class, but I know arsenic is not a nice word. For the next few years, a bunch of animals of undisclosed numbers got their hands on some of this stuff, and, well, when in Rome. So for 1952 to 1953, the cost of the poisoning rat root was $152,670 Canadian. And what's that translate to today? Almost $2 million. How? I want to know where this went in the budget. They weren't prepared for rats at all, no real precautions before, so where did this money come from? Who suffered budget cuts for this? They scrapped leading with poison after a while because, $2 million? They also made sure to point out that despite all that, it was highly effective. Yeah, because you killed everything in the vicinity along with the rats. So yeah, it was pretty effective. But how many non-rats were added onto that cost of $2 million? Huh, Alberta? Huh? So while they were just straight up nuking Alberta's eastern border, the government was coming up with an actual long-term plan since a farming province sorta needs functional farms with functional animals. Since only the rat death strip was the main concern due to those pesky Saskatchewanians laying their guard down, the people living along the border started throwing a fuss since they'd been doing the brunt of the work. After some back and forth, in 1954, Alberta showed some mercy to its citizens and started to cover 50% of the budget for the 7 municipalities along there. Nowadays, Alberta pays the entire budget against rats for them. Get a load of this absolutely insane sentence from the government on their rat control policies. Buildings are occasionally moved or torn down. If they see a rat, they will demolish the entire building if it means winning against the rat. This system relies a lot on citizens to lead them there, so the government also started heavily pushing educating the public on rats. And this quest led to some pretty fun outcomes. They held conferences, distributed pamphlets, and made some pretty funny posters. A lot of the posters also make it seem like the rats specifically have it out for Alberta. I also like how it's kill him. Ships and cars are girls to be admired, but rats are boys that need to be purged? Can't a man just exist as a man, Alberta? And yeah, again, 1950s Alberta. Because I don't know what's happening in the left-hand corner there. I guess it symbolizes Alberta's war with rats? I don't know, something racism, Alberta sucks, we already know that. Some other strategies of educating people included giving talks at various events, such as fairs, picnics, and rodeos, which is probably the most Albertan sentence I've ever had the displeasure of reading. And, in case you thought people have changed, there was backlash against stopping the rats, I guess? I don't know, man. Alberta was pretty slow getting their butts in gear, so they didn't start legally going after citizens until 1955. After that, it was open season on anyone not following the rat rules. They really brought people to court for not being anti-rat enough. And I thought McCarthyism was bad. And yeah, I love mocking Alberta, but I'll give them this, they were actually pretty successful. In 1950, there was one infestation. 1955, there were over 600, but ever since then, it has been decreasing, right until 2003 when they could claim to be officially free of rat infestations. I should point out some rats are allowed, but under very strict circumstances. Mostly, the only way to legally see a rat in Alberta is through zoos, universities, or research institutions. And I just don't get it too well, because it's just rats. They're literally everywhere. Why in the world do they take it so, oh my gosh, just 2 of them can end up being 15,000 by the end of the year. Okay, Alberta. My worldviews are starting to shift a little here. Alberta also flexes so hard on everyone else by getting super specific with the numbers. In 2020, there were exactly 26 rats in Alberta. And with how serious they take it, I wouldn't be surprised if that's literally the exact number. They probably found every single rat that year. Anyways, I don't even know what to say after all that. I've simultaneously gained and lost massive amounts of respect for Alberta. I don't know what to feel right now. Ciao?